Today, we are talking about hidden reasons and ways to solve them very quickly when client projects stall, when they drag out, when things just are, why are we not done with this yet? How is this still going? We are going to get to the solution and the bottom of this today with not one, not two, but three real life stories, all from different industries. So you can see how this really applies behind the scenes and what we've done it to solve it all. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Acacia Thornton. I'm the CEO legal coach, and I am a longtime business advisor, longtime attorney turned coach who really focuses on the spiritual and energetic side of things. So when it comes to increasing our revenue and having stronger, better businesses, it's also important that it not only feels right and is aligned to us, but that our clients feel the same way. Because when we get into these client relationships and these customer agreements and we close those deals, the whole reason for all of it is to elevate everyone together. So that is how I approach things. And what you're going to see in all three of our stories today, this is the Aligned Business Series. I go live 3 times a week telling you real world stories. And today's first story is actually one of my life. So something we haven't done in this series before. And then not only will I show you the solutions about how to solve all of this for yourself and for your business, but we have a live Q&A at the end. So definitely stay to the end so you can get your questions in and I will help answer these. Now we got to move a little fast today because 3 stories in I always try to be in 20 minutes or less, although I think we're going to push that today, is because the reason we're going to do so much today is this happens to everybody, right? Clients drag things out. Sometimes we end up being the reason things get dragged out. Let's just be honest. Life, business, other things, the combo of us with the clients. So what is it really about? Right? Because it rarely is malicious, although it could feel that way sometimes, as we'll see in one of our stories today. But why does this happen? Because sometimes it's because we thought the project was only going to take 4 weeks or 4 calls. But then it turns out we needed more like 7 to get it over the finish line. There was a misunderstanding of how to prep and outline the structure. Other times, it's because we have indecisive clients. They're, I don't know, maybe this. Oh, God, can we try this? You know what? Now that I'm doing this with that, I want it. Oh, I keep moving it, asking for little things that might just seem little, but those littles can add up to a tipping point. Then sometimes the clients don't come prepared. We have a call or we have a meeting and they're like, oh, I forgot to get that. Oh, you know what? I couldn't decide. I wasn't really sure what, and then we can't move. We can't close this phase and move to the next one, right? Sometimes it's even a blending of offerings that we'll see in one of the stories today. And also sometimes it's because it's included. Believe it or not, we often say in our client agreements and our client relationships, this is what's included, not where the boundaries are, or we assume certain boundaries, or the deadlines and the milestones are enough boundaries. They're not. They're not, as we're going to see today. So let me tell you a story from my beginnings. I was 19 years old. I was a server through college. That's what I did. I was a waitress at a local gastro pub. And I would end up working the lunch session a lot. And if you ever worked in a restaurant, the lunch rush is very limited, right? Because most people eat lunch at a certain time frame. It's usually maybe starts around 11:30 and it'll end about 1:30. That's really it. People are taking that break from work, coming in, or maybe they're shopping, but it's a very limited rush. And you also have only so many tables in your section. So let's say I had 5 tables in my section and I brought those tables in, they all get full. And let's say they're averaging 20% tips to me because I really tried hard. I really loved my clients. And then, okay, they've come in, they've sat between 11 o'clock and noon. They're here for about an hour and a half. Well, that brings us kind of to the end of the lunch rush. There's my 5 tables, $100 each. That my 20% means I made $20. I make $100 for the day. But then I started to realize, what if I can only have a capacity of 5 tables at a time, just like we as service providers can usually only have a capacity of so many one-on-one clients or so many custom projects at a time, so many custom coaching clients or consulting clients, I only get so many at a time. What can I do to increase my revenue while demand stays the same? right? I could increase the prices of my average ticket. So instead of every table spending about $100, what if I can get them to spend $120? Okay, a little incremental on my 20% tip, get a little bit more. But I started to realize the more efficient I was at completing those tables' goals, which what is their goal? To come in, to become satiated, to eat a great meal, have great service, have great beverages, and feel done, and then leave. If I can make that process and that feeling of completion happen sooner than the hour and a half, I might not just get 5 tables during a lunch rush. I might be able to refill it a second time and get 10. And that's what I started to do. My average time with my customers went down from an hour and a half to closer to 45 minutes, 50 minutes. So that meant I was doubling my revenue, right? My tips, same section, same capacity, same lunch rush, because I was getting my clients to that finish point of feeling satisfied faster. And that is going to now linger into our next 2 client stories. Okay. This first story was about a consulting company. And they'd been around in business for a long time. Parts of their business have been in business for over 100 years. They were very well established. And they had a client who was brand new at doing this. So they wanted to pay for custom work, make sure it was done right, implement it correctly. So this consulting company is like, yeah, we'll customize these things for you. We'll help you implement this. Not a problem. And it was supposed to be about a 2-month project. It had a different series of milestones, and all this is clearly outlined in the scope of services and the pricing. But every time there'd be a delivery, the client would come back a little bit later and be like, oh, can we move some of this around? We want a new format. Or, okay, now that we've taken this new format you just gave us, we shared it with the other team. The other team needs it to look like this now. Can you do this? And what ended up happening is every time the consulting company would deliver, they think they're done now. And then the client would come back and be like, well, what about this? What about this? Right? So what ended up happening is this 2-month project became a 6-month project, and they weren't even halfway done at the 6-month point. So the consulting company came to me and they're like, what do we do? How do we get out of this? Like, we're having to say no to other business, just like having to say no to another table. I can only handle so many tables at a time. They could only handle so many consulting projects. They had priced this out based on a 2-month project, not a 6-month or longer. What can they do? They had these revenue delays. Their staff was starting to get burned out. The client was also not feeling like they were getting everything they needed. Why do we always have to keep it? And there was a clear miscommunication, even though they thought everything was communicated. See, the consulting company, when they wrote onto their SOWs that this is the deliverables, these are going to be customized for you, and we're going to give you support during the project, they expected a reasonable amount of support and timelines. But the client was like, no, we told you we need handholding. We told you that we are paying this extra for this. But the consultants were like, that's not what that was. If you wanted this level of constant attention over every little thing nonstop over and over and over again, that's a different pricing point. So they both felt that they had communicated. And all of this was clear on the contract, but it wasn't actually clear in practice. And so we're going to show you how I ended up getting them to cut that off, stop it, and then what we did to make sure it never happened again. But first, I want to tell you about a coaching client of mine. She also does designing. She sold a 3-month coaching package to help somebody start a business, and this person absolutely loved her. So they're like, I also want you to design my website, my logo, and some of my marketing materials. So there's this dual package, right? And so they've got the coaching calls for 3 months and then the website design and these other things. But as they're having those calls, the client kept being like, I can't decide, or I'm not ready. Or, you know what? This came up. I had a thing with my boyfriend and I just couldn't. And then, this happened. And then, so 3 months of coaching calls come and go. There's still not even a basic plan for the website or a logo or any of those things. And so my client, thinking that, I still have to deliver these other things. I still have to deliver the marketing materials on the website and all this stuff. I therefore have to keep giving coaching calls to get these things done. It's like, not really. But she did 9 more months of calls trying to get her client to make decisions, to come to the calls prepared over and over. She'll get an next time. The client was just the type who was in a place energetically and internally that was not ready to make the decisions, get things over. So my client, the coach, overgives, overgives for 9 months because she was still waiting to be able to deliver the other part of the project, all because the client was dragging things out. Now, as you can see with all of these situations, it's not sustainable, right? And it's not what an aligned business looks or feels like, because you're going to start losing the revenue. That's spots and times and energy and spacing for you to give to other clients' containers that are more fulfilling. You also aren't staying within your timeline, so you can't prepare or plan your revenue. You can't even prepare or plan your freelancers and your suppliers and what you need. If you think you're having 3 months of revenue come in 3 months, and then suddenly you have to last 6 months on 3 months of revenue, that can hurt. But also, it starts to eat at you. It eats at you. You become exhausted. You become frustrated. You become stressed. You feel like you have to give in a way that is just not aligned to you anymore. And you start to doubt yourself as a business owner, as a leader, and as a designer, as a consultant, as a coach, whatever it is that you bring with your heart. You start to doubt yourself simply because there wasn't some basic solutions. What are those solutions? We are going to, like I said, if you have any questions, make sure we get those into the chats, because I'll get to those in a second. I already see a couple coming in, but so what are the solutions? First, you don't have to carry all of the energetic weight of your boundaries and enforcing them yourselves. We feel like we do. I have to be the one to communicate this. I have to. But also, when do you communicate it in a way that's sustainable? Oh, I mentioned this in the onboarding. Well, onboarding was 9 months ago. The client probably doesn't remember that. They were maybe absorbing other pieces of information. We don't remember everything that's said. Our brains have to simplify and digest the key elements. So what might have been important to you maybe just wasn't the important factor for the client to remember at the time. So the number one way to actually create a sustainable foundation that protects you and the clients, and I'll show you here in a second how these actually make better client relationships, is to put it into your customer agreements itself. As we saw with the consulting, having those milestones is not enough. If you can't answer the question, when is the project done? Or who decides when the project is done? We have a gap in your contracts. Who decides when your project is done? You or your client? 9 out of 10 times, it ends up being the client. The client can ask for revision. The client can ask for another training. The client they can drag it out. So if it's left in the client's hands, it's not in yours. There's no clear communication. What we want is everyone to be in agreement. It's not you or them versus you. It's everyone in agreement, which is another reason why having these things, I'll show you the 2 clauses here in a second, up front in your agreements is powerful, because everyone has come to an agreement on when done is done, what's included, what's not, and what happens when we go beyond it. What happens when we go beyond it? And sometimes that is more revenue, sometimes that's a time extension, and so on. That's really, really important, is having that level of clarity so everybody knows how to proceed. Everybody knows what's expected of them. And like if in the coaching one, right? If the customer knew that if they didn't get those design elements figured out within those 3 months, that it was going to cost them more, or that these other things might have happened, or that they wouldn't be included, something, right? Just some outcome. Well, then now that client knows I need to bring myself in these 3 months, not keep asking for permission to drag it out. They know the boundaries, which helps them be more efficient and effective. What's great about boundaries is not only do they have clear guidance and clarity, they bring clarity the whole way through. Because unlike saying it in your onboarding, that contract's there the whole time. Everyone can reference it at any time and know what's agreed to, know what's expected of you. But clients also step up and bring their better selves when they know what's expected of them. They can decide, All right, this is my last extra call. Do I have everything? I don't. What else do I want or need? I want this. What can I do to help me as the client get that from this call with my coach or from my consulting company? Or they can decide, I think I need 2 more calls. How much is that? That's $250 each. Okay, let me talk to them about adding 2 calls, right? And then there's that value exchange. The customer gets to decide the value for them where they are on their side when we have these clear boundaries. So how does this happen? And I'm going to show you how to actually get word for word, like copy paste these right into your agreements here in a second. But the first one is called an acceptance clause. An acceptance clause would have helped in both of these scenarios of our stories. And then what is an acceptance clause? It defines when the work is considered done. Back to that, is it done when you say it's done or is it done when the client says it's done? How about neither? How about it be done when the acceptance clause says it's done? What we all agree to, right? And it also doesn't just address what happens affirmatively, but what happens if there's silence? The customer ghosts you, doesn't behave the way you expected them to, suddenly deprioritizes this project. A good acceptance clause isn't just going to say what's expected when people are behaving. It's going to clarify done means done. No matter how you behave, client, no matter whether you came prepared or not, no matter if you ghost me or not, no matter if you show up late or not, I have delivered this part. This is what your opportunity is to say or do something about that. And when it's done, it's done. And what's great about done? Payment. Now payment is officially due. If you've ever delivered and waited for your client to pay and pay and pay and pay, it might also be a sign that there is this open space in your agreements. Because if you have a clear acceptance clause, it's legally like, no, payment is due now. It's not just, oh, I've invoiced you, payment is due now. It's, no, this work is done and this has automatically triggered payment. That is the level of clarity you get out of a great acceptance clause. And thankfully, the consulting company had a basic acceptance clause. Ideally, they would have had one at every single one of those milestones so that their client couldn't keep extending and asking for more and more and more and more. But also with the coaching, right? This is when we're done. This is when I'm done delivering my part, client. I need you to work within the scope. Otherwise, like this is it. Done is done. So having that acceptance clause would have clarified both of those. But thankfully, the consulting company had a weak but existing acceptance clause at the very end of the project. The very end of the project. They didn't do one every milestone like I wish they would have, but they had one at the end of the project. So when they came to me, Acacia, how do we end this? How do I get out of this? We're beyond deadline. And it's affecting other parts of the business. I go, you have an acceptance clause. I need you to trigger it. And they're like, that requires finishing everything. This client's bothering us so much, we don't have the bandwidth. I'm like, well, then you're stuck. You're stuck until you can trigger done. And so they hustled their butts off. And they're like, okay, we'll get it done. We'll get it done. And because once you get to that, you can now tell the client, the contract says we're done. The project is done. If there's any extras you need, we now trigger what happens on the other side. You're going to get, 2 weeks of extra support or whatever, right? So now we've put the finish line and we've gotten them to cross it and we can show that to the client. It's not just us arbitrarily picking it. It's what the client already agreed to in that acceptance clause. So that's what was really nice is we had to rush to get them to that. They overexhausted themselves and worked themselves, but they were so eager to have that project stop the burnout that they went and did that. So ideally, an acceptance clause would be at every single point of delivery and definitely at the end. And then the second one. What is the second one? So the second one is called a scope creep clause. And scope creep says, hey, this is what's included. Not just 2 revisions within 7 days. And if you need an 8th day or a 3rd revision, scope creep clauses, some of my clients end up putting in like 7 or 8 of them. Any little bit of extra that client can come to you for that you consider beyond the scope of the project, we clarify what's in and what's out and what happens beyond it. Because sometimes our clients need a little bit more time. Sometimes our clients need a few more calls. Sometimes our clients need a few more revisions. That's not wrong, but that doesn't mean you have to give it for free. That doesn't mean you have to now include it. And that doesn't mean you have to give them unlimited. So scope creep clause is what holds that into place and make sure there's a value exchange on the other side of it. It's not a punishment. It just says, when I've budgeted out this project for your client and this timeline, these milestones and deliverables, this is what is anticipated. We can go beyond that, but there's going to be a value exchange. Or if you don't want to go beyond that, you could also say that, like plain and simple. So how can you actually get an acceptance clause and a scope creep clause? I'm going to show you how you can copy paste these right into your agreement. You don't have to work hard for these. I created the Align Clients Paid with Purpose program. And what this program is it's 3 modules. One is acceptance clause, one is scope creep clause, and then the other one is the story we're going to get to tomorrow, by the way. A big story. Client lost 5 years of revenue within 30 days on the contract. But what each of these does is you get the literal copy paste. You decide what you want for your business, and then you just copy paste it right into your agreement. So you don't have to wonder if you're doing it right or wrong or anything of that. You literally have a step-by-step, like 3 to 5 questions, and then you just copy paste it right in. Like, it's that simple. So it gives you those answers right there, then and there. So I'm putting that on the screen in case you want to explore that. That will give you all of those clauses, and you can do these yourself because they are part of your deliverables. Just as you define what is and isn't included in your services and what their pricing is and the timelines, these are part of that. So you don't need a lawyer for these. These are part of you clarifying better boundaries, better value exchange, and ensuring that your clients know what's expected of them and the timelines expected of them. So you have that open and clear. All right. Now, while that is up on the screen, let's hop to your questions because I saw a few come in. And we're already at our 20 minutes, but I want to make sure I get to your questions. All right, let's see. Okay. What if I already signed the contract and this keeps happening? Can I add these clauses mid-project? Okay. So look, if it's not written in your contract, which you first want to do. So let's first make sure this never happens to you again. Go get those clauses. Clarify what you want and put them in your templates. That way you know that moving forward, it's never going to happen again. But for your current ones, we have to go off of what's written in there. We have to go off of what is written there. So see if you've maybe phrased something in there that might give you that out. Like I had said, the consulting company, we happen to have a very loosely written one. Theirs was something along the lines of, if the deliverables substantially meet what was listed on the SOW, their project is complete. And so I was like, okay, you need to go substantially meet whatever, trigger that, and then we'll make you a better one. And was it go along each timeline. But look at what you have there, because what's not fair. It's not fair to tell your clients one thing and behave a certain way and then pull the rug out from under them. That's not going to result in a happy client. But what you can do now is start communicating and setting the foundation. Hey, it looks like this project might need a few extra calls. Don't forget, only 7 calls were included. So if you're thinking we're going to need to go beyond that, let me know so we can plan out some pricing and some timelines for that, right? Give them a heads up before you hit the wall, before you get there, and lay that foundation. That usually helps. So you can't literally add them mid-project unless you're willing to go through a formal amendment, which requires both you and the client to sign a document. But you can start to do it in your behavior and your words and your communication style with them. Yeah. Do I need a lawyer to use these clauses? Nope. As mentioned, these are part of your business, right? They're just part of defining the value exchange, services, time for samples, revisions, whatever. Like, this is all part of what your deliverables are. So you do not need a lawyer for these at all. No. Can I use this in verbal agreements or only in written contracts? Okay, so written contracts, when they're signed, are really potent and powerful because, one, we know everybody agreed. We know the exact words and terms they agreed to. And we know it can be enforced in arbitration or in court or whatever if we ever had to get there. Verbal agreements, however, rely on the he said, she said, hoping people remember, hoping that they interpreted it the same way that, right? Even the consulting client that we had earlier Their customer thought they had communicated, hey, we told you this is the first time we're doing this. We need some hand holding. So the customer thought they had communicated, but that's not what the consulting company heard. The consulting company was like, yeah, we laid out what we were going to do for you on the SOW in this contract. So when we have verbal agreements, we leave ourselves open to a lack of clarity, a lack of being able to refer back to anything. And verbal agreements have more requirements to even be enforceable. If your stuff is worth over $500 or more, the law often requires that you have something in writing. There has to be some form of writing. It doesn't have to be fully comprehensive, but a purely verbal agreement is not enough. So just to, kind of clarify that I wouldn't rely on verbal agreements. But as I said, when the first question was asked, can I do this in mid project, is you can use your communication style to help nudge it a certain way, but that doesn't mean it's going to be enforceable or fully agreed to the way it would be if you had it in signed writing. Yeah. In the program, do I get a template or just guidance? Oh, I love this question. All of it. I really mean this, you can do this yourself in under 30 minutes thing for business owners. No background about legal contracts, anything is necessary at all. So what you'll get in each module is a video that walks you through more client stories and that shows you the different things that we thought about when we were actually writing them. So a little bit more than what we have in these calls, right? We go into details, and then you're going to get a worksheet that helps you decide, what do you want? What does this mean for you? And then you're also going to get a sheet that just has the copy paste. You can fill in the blanks if you want to customize, or you can just copy paste in the ones that are right there if you feel that it already addresses it. So you get all that. You're going to get the guidance and the support and the video. I hate to call it a training, but it's just more of like, one of my clients called it, I get to see what's going on behind the scenes with other businesses. I get to see what they're facing and how they're answering these things, because without that, you feel you have to come up with your own answers. And this program is designed to show you all the different ways that you can explore and implement these things and then do that for yourself. It gives you the tools to literally have the word for word copy paste it right into your agreement, right? Only thing you have to decide is how you want to do business with your clients. It's the only part that you have to decide. Everything else is done for you in that program. Let's see. We'll go 2 more questions, all right? 2 more questions because we are over time, but I love these questions. I've overgiven in the past. How do I start enforcing without feeling guilty, mean, or rigid? Oh, this is great. Okay. So I love that you've already recognized, hey, I've done this in the past. I don't want to be that person anymore because it's not who I am. When we hold to our own boundaries and how we do business, we're not being mean or rigid, because when we're able to enforce who we are, we're able to bring more to others. As we saw in all 3 of the stories, right? The story about me being a server and the tables I had when I was in the restaurant, and then the consulting people, as well as the coach and the designer, is that when we overgive to one space, we're taking away from others. We're lowering our quality of the energy we can bring to our existing clients. We're lowering the quality of what we can bring to another new client. The more we can shine our light in the world. So by just even holding your space and knowing what you want to do, that is already empowering. That is never mean or rigid. What might feel mean or rigid is the communication of that. And that's what's great about having it written in your contract, is that the other side has agreed. They've agreed. You're not being mean or rigid. Everybody agreed. Everyone's like, yes, this is how I want to do business. They've come to you because they want to work with you your way. You're different than all the other competitors and people who do what you do in your space. That's why they come to you. So the more you bring who you are to that, and the better you clarify that in clarity and in communication, written and verbal, and enforce that for yourself, it's an empowerment to you and your clients, because they now know what they're getting, the level they're going to get it, and what they need to do to make sure they get that beautiful outcome. Yeah. All right. This has been Acacia, the CEO Legal Coach, the Aligned Business Series. Tomorrow we go live talking about if any of your contracts are over 30 days and you're using a template that you got online or from AI or something. I'm going to show you that your clients can actually pull all of that revenue out from under you like that. We're going to show you how to stop it. I'll see you there. Have a great one.